Thanks for joining me. My name is Dave Miller. I am the unpleasant blind guy. Allies and enemies. There's a lot of confusion over who to trust these days. And that confusion does not only exist in the right side of the political spectrum. As I pointed out with the help of Michele Walsh of Canada in the last episode of the series Wolves in Sheep's Clothing, those we sometimes consider to be our political allies can turn on us and become our worst enemies. In the case of the state of Vermont and in other states in the United States of America, some governors have chosen to cooperate with the importation of tens of thousands of Mohammedans, people whose ideology is completely antithetical not only to the principles of the constitutionally federated Republic of the United States of America, but to the accepted multicultural norms that our nation has spent so much time and so many lives to create for the protection of its own citizens. In the case of women, this is especially true. In the past, the establishment media has often been the champion of women's rights. It, along with government and feminist groups, have been at the spearhead of the struggle for women's equality in the United States of America, and its equivalents have been so in other countries. But as I conclude my conversation with Michele Walsh, women, progressive and conservative, will see that those entities that once stood for them are now turning away and abandoning their rights for the rights of the followers of Muhammad. Full disclosure, this interview is not from the November the 30th RFB radio program. Though Michele Walsh's interview on that program gave good information, the audio turned out not to be good. But Michele was good enough to grant me an interview 6 days later, and RFB Radio's Kel Fritzy was kind enough to act as producer. I begin this time where I left off in the previous part.
What you're saying is that not only is there segregation of women in Canada in favor of Muslim men, you're saying that it is ignored and even condoned by the government. And further, you're saying that a taxpayer-funded government news outlet is aiding and abetting this, and that entity itself has employees within it that are what people in the United States would consider to be progressives. So it is, in fact, progressives in the CBC, in the official news media of Canada, who are actually now working against women to promote Islam. Am I correct?
You are absolutely correct. And the reason why I can tell you that I know this for sure is because after it went on the National Post, the CBC called up my 15-year-old and wanted to Facebook her. So I didn't know this was going on. So this Steve Pebicook, who's a so-called journalist here in Halifax, paid for by our taxpayers' dollars, Facebooked her. And because there was nothing on her Facebook to indicate that she was anyway Islamophobic, as they put it, or
Right.
myself, I did not have a Facebook at the time. They asked if we would do an interview, and I thought that the CBC represented not, 100% the truth, but would represent Canadians, because that's what they're paid for, to tell the story about Canadian people. So they came to our home, spent 3 hours at her home, and in the interview, I kept bringing up the booklet, because that's what we were very upset about. How is this booklet being distributed on government property paid for by taxpayers? They kept ignoring it. They would ask us over and over, did we hate Islam? And we were there, well, we don't know about Islam. The only thing we know about Islam is that 9/11. And then they would ask us another question, do you think, what's wrong with Islam, they would say. And we were there, and my daughter would say, I don't know about Islam. So they kept pushing us for questions, and I was wondering, what is going on here? Then they asked me if I hated people from Islam, and I was confused. I said to them, I think you guys are mixed up. We are the victims here. Our daughters were segregated and discriminated from because they were female. Why do you keep bringing up this man and his right to segregate us? And when I would ask them questions back, they would not answer me. They would ignore me. And then they'd say, oh, well, we're just going to ask you a few more questions.
Right.
And then they would ask us again, do we think the guy had the right to push women to the side? And my daughter says, no, he doesn't. If he wants to be in a class where it's all male, then he should make his own dojo and get somebody to teach him private classes or whatever. This is a government-sponsored recreation center that shares for men and women. But they wouldn't like that answer. So anyway, they spent 3 hours, asked us every way from sunshine to whatever. Did we hate Islam? And we kept saying no. And in the end, my daughter says, no, clearly stated in the booklet that Islam hates me because I'm a female. And that's when they ended the interview, because they could not get us to say that we disliked Islam, because we kept repeating to them, we have no idea what it is. All we know is this Muslim man came into the dojo, demanded segregation, and every part of our government, the Human Rights Commission, the mayor, the premier, the federal government, Liberal Party, and NDP Party said it was okay for him to do that, and it's okay to hand that booklet out. And then they said to us, oh, do you have any proof that the class was segregated? So I said to him, I'm going to go and get a video which shows where my daughter was graded on her last day that she ever attended the Aikido class, and she had to wait 3 weeks for another female to show up because he wouldn't grade her with any of the males in the class. So I went to go show the video, and then as I went upstairs to get something, I came back down, and they were snooping on my computer. I couldn't believe it. I said to him, what are you doing?
Now,
this
hold
is the
on,
journalist.
Michele. Now, wait. The CBC, the official news organ of Canada, was snooping on your computer in your home.
Yes, as I left the room. And I came back down with the booklet. I said, here's the booklet. This is what it's all about, is this booklet being handed and the segregation of the class. And I said, here's the video. So I said to him, do you have anything I can transfer this file over? So I transferred the file over to him. I gave him the booklet, and I told him, now you photocopied that booklet, and I want to know when you're going to be airing this. Well, he played around with us for days, and then I said to him, what are you doing on my computer? Oh, I was just looking for, I was just checking something, the weather. I don't know what he said. I was there. You shouldn't be looking at my computer. I just left the room for a few minutes. This is what you asked. I just knew that they were up to something because of, like I told you, the way they were asking us questions. This was an interrogation, and we kept saying to them, you realize we're the victims. We didn't ask for this. This happened to us. We were minding our own business, and this man handed her the booklet and then demanded not even to take instructions from her. So now he's refusing, to work with these instructors. So anyway, he left. He told us, yeah, he'll air it. And then over the weekend, he kept passing up. And then finally, he would stop answering my emails.
This is the official taxpayer-supported news organ of Canada, and its employees are snooping on your computer while you're at home. Now, isn't that illegal?
Well, I thought it was illegal in Canada, but journalists, they can get away with anything by saying, oh, it's, I can't tell you my source, how I got that information. But I was quite shocked when I came down the stairs, because what I did is I went upstairs to get something for Sonia. She went up there. They asked us anyway. That was their trick to get us out of the room. And then when I came back down, he was there looking at my computer. And he was punching on my keyboard, like he was searching for stuff. And I said to him, what are you doing? Oh, I was just looking, for something from work, and I thought I could get it on your computer. And then he was there, well, the weather, and we were just, what? I said to him, do you want this a video or not? And then he said, okay, I'll take that video, because it was a key. That's what I went upstairs for, was they needed like a...
they wanted a thumb
of the video of showing that Sonia, in a class of about 4 or 5 women at this time, getting her grading with a female to prove that she was segregated, and she was then only working with females in the classroom. And so we handed that, and he ski-daddled out of the house that fast. I thought, what did he get? And then I believed he was probably looking to see if I had a Facebook or anything like that, or any information on my booklet to prove his theory that I hated Islam. But he found nothing, of course, because I had no Facebook. It was a new computer that my husband got me, and just a few things. But I found out, this is a thing that you didn't know about. The Halifax Herald, which is like a left media outlet, ran a story about my husband the next day. So, and they had information, and I wondered, how did they get this information? So what they had found out is that my husband on his Facebook had the posting of that reverend or minister down in the United States that was going to burn the Quran.
Right.
And my husband had that video on his Facebook. So they ran a story in the Halifax Herald to insult my husband. And they associated the story with the Aikido class with Sonia. So they degraded my husband, calling him an Islamic phobic and that he hated Islam. And Muslims wouldn't like his Facebook because he had some things on it that may offend Islam. And that's what the media did in Halifax, to try to degrade my husband and our family, which were the victims of the segregation in the booklet. So then they went to the schools, and then my daughter started getting bullied because they had mentioned my daughter and the situation at the Aikido class. They did not interview my daughter, and they did not interview my husband, but they interviewed the men in the Aikido class, and the men said that they saw no problem with the segregation, that they didn't think it was a big deal, but they never, ever in that post at the Halifax Herald mentioned the booklet. They tried to make us all out to be that we were just causing problems. And they even stated that in the thing, that we were just troublemakers, is what they said in the media. So this is a serious problem that we have in Canada, and I know you have it in the United States. Media's taking the victims and trying to turn us into the villains because we stand up and want equal rights for our daughters and females in our country. And I was outraged by it. So if anything, what they did to me is they pissed me off. So I decided to open up Stop the CBC and the biased media and other groups to try to put an end and share the real truth about what the media is hiding from us. So I have a group in Canada and lots of other groups and lots of people now, because of what happened to me, they opened up a can of worms, that I have a group all across Canada, and we share information, and thousands of people now know what's going on in Halifax, what's going on in PEI, what's going on in New Brunswick with Muslims demanding segregation, Sharia law, halal meat, what halal is. So that's what I did, because of the CBC, our major news network that gets $1 billion a year, tried to make me out to be the villain, which we were clearly not. We had no idea what Islam was.
All right. Well, what I want to ask you, Michele, by way of wrapping up, is how can people contact you who might want interviews or things of that nature? Because most of my audience is American, but I do have audiences in other countries around the world. And certainly for women, both in the state of Vermont, where I'm from, and what sparked this series, and women in the United States of America might well be interested enough and should be interested enough to contact you. So how can they do that if they want to?
Well, because of all that happened, I'm now on Facebook, and it's Michele Walsh, Halifax, Nova Scotia. You could see me and look me up, or you can contact Stop the CBC and the Bias Media, which is a group on Facebook. You could find that. Otherwise, they could message me through Facebook and Stop the CBC and the Bias Media. And I just wanted to let people know that I was just a mother with 2 daughters going along in life, minding my own business. I was just discriminated and segregated, my daughters were, and I wasn't going to take it. And I wanted to stand up. And it's not that hard for other people who are willing to stand up against the Islamification of our countries, because it is going to happen. More and more people, especially in our universities and in our government buildings, will be segregated and discriminated. And I wouldn't be surprised if one day we're going to have one line for women, one line for men.
All right.
Thank
Well,
you.
that's awesome, Michele. Thank you very much.
There's one other thing I want to mention that happened. I contacted all kinds of feminist groups, and no feminist would help me. One feminist said that they can't speak out. This is the Dalhousie Feminist Group. They changed their name because they were no longer going to receive funding if they continued to have the feminist name. They had to call it like a universal group for men and women to have a safe place to stay. But anyway, I contacted them when that first happened, which they put me on to Tara Fatat to try to help me. But they said that they couldn't get involved. They would lose their funding, and there's nothing that they could do for me. And the only group that would help me out, that took the booklet, because I never talked about that because nobody asks about that. But I got the Violence Against Women, a group here in Halifax, for the Phoenix House is what we call it in Halifax. I contacted them, and they were the only women, because they told me over the phone and through some, I think it was even in some emails, that they're receiving a high number now of Muslim women who are being violent and now seeking help with the Phoenix House. And they wanted definitely to see my book, so we had photocopied the booklet. It's not a great. What I did is photocopied it, downloaded it, and sent it out so people would actually see the booklet. So it's a photocopy of every page. I flipped every page. So I sent it to the Phoenix House, and she said that she was going to take it to the mayor in her meeting and demand that this booklet not to be allowed to be handed out on any public or government-funded building, because this booklet promotes violence towards women. So that was the only people that actually helped me, besides the conservatives that stood up on Sun News, which was the Justice Minister, Peter MacKay, and another woman, I think her name was Leahy, she might be running for the Prime Minister of Canada. She stood up for me, too, on Sun News and said that this was terrible, what happened. But I just want to let you know about the Phoenix House, that she did take it to the mayor to make sure that booklet wasn't handed out on property. Well, that's what she said she would.
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing that you can tell people that contact you, because they'll probably say, well, you should get in contact with a feminist group, which I know you did try to do that.
I did. Oh, I contacted not only our local feminists, I contacted feminists in Ontario, out west. I contacted every party who has like a feminist, MP or whatever they have in their little parties. I contacted every one of them. Nobody cared. So I did. I went all over Canada, and it was only, I thought, well, the Phoenix House might help me because this is promoting violence towards women. And they were the only ones that helped me. Yeah. So go after your advocacy group in your neighborhood and federally that protects women, from violence against women.
It sounds like you're paying the price for being a part of what I call the new civil rights movement, civil rights for everyone and not just for one group, which in this case happens to be Muslims. Michele, I want to thank you very much for taking the time to do this interview. I really appreciate it very much. The 5-part series that I had been planning on doing has now turned into a 6-part series because I can make 2 different shows out of this. I appreciate your time very much. And of course, we are known to each other. I have spoken to you before, and I want you to know that I respect you more than I have words for. Good luck in your fight against the CBC, against Islamization in Canada, and in your fight for the rights of women in Canada. I really appreciate it very much. Thank you, Michele.
Michele Walsh's testimony is quite compelling. It's proof that the women of Vermont and the women of other states of the United States of America and women in other countries are going to have to begin making alliances with people they might have disagreed with in the past. Because clearly, their traditional allies have chosen to abandon the advocation of their rights for the rights of people to whom bigotry is a social norm. In the concluding part of the series, Wolves in Sheep's Clothing, I'm joined once again by Kel Fritzie of Canada and Tim Burton of the United Kingdom for final thoughts and points on how free societies suffer when Islam swamps the town. That's it for this time. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for listening, and may your God go with you. Goodbye. The Unpleasant Blind Guy is copyright 2016 Anno Domini.